How's it going, everybody? LSUODYSSEY.COM here with you. I mean, obviously, I'm not a website. My name is Lon Phillips Sullivan of LSUODYSSEY.COM. Transfer portal fallout from, LSU having a string of defensive tackle misses. There's no way around it. They're misses. We needed at least two of these guys. When you're talking about Demonic Williams, Simeon Barrow, who I think was really, for me, the prime target that I would have been pursuing. And then you've got Philip Bleedy. It's it's very interesting how it worked out with Simeon Barrow now just an hour ago declaring that he's going to Miami. You had, which was our prediction changed from first being LSU in the lead for quite a while there. It was just seeming like Miami inevitably was going to kick down the door with some NIL package. And it seemed like, maybe that'll happen with Demonic Williams, with Texas, or now, as we found out, Oklahoma was going to be the school that would do that. But Simeon Barrow, losing him to Miami, that hurts. But we're going to get into all of that. I want your comments as well, because this was big. A few weeks ago, when it became clear LSU would be pursuing three key defensive tackle targets, Barrow, Williams, and Bleedy. If you told anyone that the Tigers would strike out on all three, I think you'd probably be laughed at. I think you'd probably be laughed out of the room. Just because, of course, LSU would get at least one of these guys with Bo Davis, right? There's many layers to this, though. So strap in, leave your biases behind, and get ready to buckle up for something very interesting here for this one. Hopefully everybody's in here and getting ready to watch and comment and chime in. We hoped Logan Graffia could join us, our co-host from the last show. Love doing that show with him, and we could tell that you guys enjoyed it as well. He could not on such short notice, but we will be getting him back as soon as we can. Great to have him on to bounce stuff off with. You'd probably be laughed at, though, if you said, LSU is going to miss on Barrow, Williams, and Bleedy, all of them. But now, in the wake of LSU, a top contender, you'd have to say, within the best conference in college football, this is a team that should be in the playoff, right? With a returning quarterback like Nussmeier, and one of the best offensive lines, if not the best in the country. Weapons at receiver, once again, reloading there. Mason Taylor at tight end. You got Josh Williams, Caleb Jackson, Trey Holly at running back. It is thin, once again, a recurring theme at certain positions, but the talent there is suitable with running back all over the place. This is another electric offensive staff. It should be, with Hankton, Sloan returning, and now being offensive coordinators together. It should work out with these two, right? It should work out. We've seen them coordinate a game together, and they were able to lead us from behind multiple occasions. Double digit, I think it was twice in that game by double digits that we came back from, including scoring the winning touchdown from behind as well. And nearly scoring 40 points. Nussmeier putting over 400 passing yards through the air, just showing poise, precision, and passing flair. I mean, just so many key returning offensive players, too. When you're talking about Lacey, possibly Holton Jr. going off, Aaron Anderson, Mason Taylor, as we just said. And this is a unit that's lost a Heisman winner and 2 overall picks a Heisman winner and a number 2 overall pick at quarterback, and now 2 first round picks at receiver. and yet there's still like excitement in the kind of like the right mindset we can see is on the field for this offense in practice, or like, for the staff on the recruiting trail. They have been recruiting incredibly for the future for the offense, getting number one quarterbacks, number one receivers. You're talking about guys like Colin Hurley, who are back there as a true freshman at quarterback. Ricky Collins. There's a lot of Bryce Underwood, of course, as everybody saw him take over the OT 7-on-7. Just a freak. That's the number one quarterback I referenced. DeCorian Moore, number one receiver. Hopefully we can keep him away from Texas. Number one running back in Harlem Berry, who you saw his versatility in that 7-on-7, catching a lot of touchdowns from Bryce Underwood. LSU, offensively, you're talking about the offensive line conveyor belt that Brad Davis has also brought in. There's a lot of depth there. That trench has been taken care of. And most importantly, they have options. You feel if guys aren't working out, they can figure it out. And so on offense, that's why people around college football, and then when you talk specifically the LSU fan base, feel almost like a giddy excitement about the offense, because whether or not they figure out, in the first few games, we know we'll be able to score enough points, right? Conceivably, against USC, against a few of these teams, while we kind of figure it out. But when we look over at our defense, we're still worried, and days like today kind of hammer that point home of not only are you short on the defensive line at these key spots at defensive tackle, but now, I mean, this is some scary stuff with the transfer portal, where it's like you have to really throw down some big money to get a single guy now. Like the prices, the market has been pinned down, and the prices have gone up. They've skyrocketed. And I smelt it in the air. I could smell it. And any LSUODYSSEY.com subscriber or just viewer, reader heard me say this. The defensive tackles in this portal are smelling the opportunism. I said this back on April 22nd. They're smelling the opportunism. So even though we felt good about LSU with Simeon Barrow, it was just because it was common sense to go to LSU for Simeon Barrow, right? But when it talks about a massive NIL, huge, expansive, getting tons of benefits, tons of this huge package of just getting a lot of money thrown at you. We're talking more money equivalent or higher than the highest paid assistants on LSU's staff, which contained the highest paid assistant in college football with Bo Davis. We're talking about something that's drastically changed with college football. We're talking about something that's gotten very crazy, very fast. But the defense, this is a side of the ball that should improve this season under new defensive coordinator Blake Baker. I just feel there are plenty of talented ballers on this defense, not only guys who played for one of the worst units in program history last season, but a large group of superstar freshmen who could receive plenty of snaps in year one. Yet when we look up front at defensive tackle, one of the key positions of a defense, right up through the spine of a defense, we could be screwed if we can't find the answers here. Now we're going to go through some things where we might figure out some answers here and some pathways to some answers. They're not going to be Simeon Barrow. They're not going to be Philip Lee. They're not going to be Demonic Williams. Like, just forget all that. It was a lot of hard work recruiting those guys for nothing, and it sucks. You almost wish LSU had just gone hard for just one of the three, and just Simeon Barrow, like, we're going all in. Like, come on, But we'll get into that. We just have two experienced scholarship players at defensive tackle: Jacobian Guillory and Jalen Lee, and then Bo Davis, Brian Kelly, even the janitor in a Seattle Starbucks across the country understood that LSU needed defensive tackles and quick, and needed them the day before yesterday. This is a spot LSU should have never been in. We had to retain one of Mekhi Wingo or Mason Smith. Jordan Jefferson was out of eligibility. Forget him. He was one of the three Tigers drafted, three DTs drafted: Wingo, Smith, and Jordan Jefferson. But we had to get one of Wingo or Mason to come back. We had to. I mean, not to mention the fact that it's stunning LSU haven't had any developing young talent at DT over the past few seasons. Like, where is the sophomore guy entering year two, kind of coming into his own at defensive tackle alongside Jacobian Guillory, a guy that we could start alongside Jacobian Guillory? There's just two new transfers: JUCO target Sean Washington, who LSU fans know about. LSU has been targeting for a while. But JUCO target Sean Washington. I keep saying his name wrong. And former, Wisconsin Badger Gio Paez. We're possibly going to be relying on a five-star freshman who's not even on campus yet, Dominic McKinley, missing out on all the top transfer portal DTs when you're missing out on the number 1, 2, 3 guys. Simeon Barrow, Philip Leedy, Dominic Williams. You're going to be relying on walk-on options now, and getting really creative with some of our strong kind of deep linebacking core. Maybe you use more linebackers, a lot more inside rushing to get some kind of interior penetration, or at least some clogging. And maybe you're moving some defensive ends or edge rushers inside. You're seeing the thicker, kind of stronger, weightier edge men like Savion Jones, possibly Parashand, will most likely be joining freshman Ahmad Bro, in switching positions from defensive end to defensive tackle. Pay attention for those kind of changes at the start of fall. I think we're going to see a few of those guys move inside, just out of pure necessity. I want to ask you all, how bad is it really at defensive tackle for LSU? How bad is it really at defensive tackle? We have a ton of comments we didn't see. Hermload says, can't believe we fucked it all up with all three. Help us make sense of this. Chester Langston says, who is the next target? We will get into that, so stay tuned. But this, very interesting. Peggy, what's up, Peggy? She says, Hermload, Williams wanted more money than any player on LSU makes, and about the same as some of the coaches. Exactly. Peggy just verified that. Thank you, Peggy. That is the truth. We're talking high six figures, early seven figures numbers. Insane. Jamer says, Loner, what's up? Just trying to deep dive into this and trying to figure out what the hell happened and why LSU have gotten to this point. And I think I've got it figured. I think I've got it sussed. We've got Cordell in the house. What's up, Cordell? How you doing, my man? Drink to Cordell. My dude, Cordell. Cordell says, at this point, just get bodies at the DT position. I don't care if they come from ULM or McNeese. LOL. Oh, God. I mean, that's it looks like might be where we're heading. And that's where how bad is it really at defensive tackle? That's a question I'm asking you. How bad is it at defensive tackle? How bad is it really at defensive tackle? How bad will it be exposed? Defensive tackle will be exposed this season. How bad? Will USC be able to expose it? As we have seen year after year after year after year since 2020, really, where LSU have greatly misjudged their own team going into a season and have flubbed the first game, and it's become a bad omen for the rest of the season. We've been able to overcome that both times in the Brian Kelly era in both seasons. But why even begin the season like that? Let's get this right and stop losing these openers, right? And will USC be able to expose it? It's just very interesting to me, because that's going to be the game where that could happen probably more easily than others from a defensive tackle standpoint. Just from someone who's played the game before, it's like that's got to be the game where it's going to be harder for the defensive tackles to get more into the game quick. It's easier for defensive tackles facing an offense that's kind of run up the middle a bunch, kind of get your feet wet, you're getting into some hits, maybe you get some tackles, but a very expansive side to side Lincoln Riley offense from USC. It's a bad matchup for a team without DTs. Not saying that Lincoln Riley's teams are known for running the football, which they actually have a lot of impressive running stats when you actually look at the numbers. But it's really about shredding those. A team without defensive tackles, they'll have time to pass all day. You won't be getting as much of a pass rush as we saw last season, even with great guys like Swinson rushing on the outside. So you've seen it affect a lot of stuff. Is this just a bunch of fans acting like little kids, screaming about not getting the shiny new toys? Like I've seen some LSU fans kind of say. Or is this a serious concern? I feel it's a serious concern anytime you're depleted in the trenches. Anytime you're grasping at straws at offensive tackle, offensive guard, or defensive tackle, defensive end, edge rusher. Any of these spots, it's hurting your team. But when you're talking about defensive tackle, it is the basis of where LSU's defensive, revival should be coming from this season. But it might not be. It might just be coming from the linebackers and maybe some of the safety guys. Jordan Gilbert having just an incredible season. We're going to have to see some unbelievable tackling either way through the spine, through the teeth of LSU's defense. So we're going to have an amazing season from our linebackers. We're going to have to see Whit Weeks flying around hell-bent for leather, destroying people. We're going to have to see him on the field for starters. We're going to have to see Greg Penn pick it up and add a little bit of pace, a little bit of a football IQ to his game. If he can't add that pace, and shed a little bit of weight, he's got to add smarter coverage skills, because we cannot allow, if we're getting shredded through the defensive line, and then we're slow to react on the linebackers. Oh my God, we're screwed. And so maybe get creative and use the linebackers as a way to kind of shield that. But you're going to be doing things with inside rushing and stuff you just don't want to do anyway. You're taking guys from spots you don't want to be having them rush through the middle to try and make up for something. It's always going to be overcompensating. I mean, I feel it's a serious concern anytime you're depleted and just grasping at straws at defensive tackle. But the colossally public misses when it comes to throwing around money in the new age of NIL has a lot of LSU fans seriously worried. And some fans don't believe the Tigers will be able to continue competing against the money freight train that's slowly taking over college football decision making more and more, as we've seen. I'm here to tell you LSU has the funds. It's about directing it to the same place. getting all these competing interests and boosting aligned and directed to football for this one season instead of being factioned off in other key Tiger sports, women's basketball, baseball, men's basketball, softball, etc. But would you really tell me right now, here and now, that you are okay with Demonic Williams or Simeon Barrow or Philip Bleedy making as much money as our highest paid assistant coaches? Completely dwarfing the earnings of Tigers who've been winning games for LSU for multiple seasons now. Harold Perkins, Will Campbell, Emory Jones, Garrett Dellinger, Greg Penn III. Should some guy just walk on the team and make more than them, no matter what their pedigree is? Should LSU have paid Simeon Barrow and Demonic Williams, $1.5 million each in that territory? Because that's what it would have cost. It would have definitively shored up the Tigers' depleted DT spot for the next season, at least in the short term. It would have made people feel good, but it would have been a $3 million Band-Aid. One that could have caused waves throughout the locker room where NIL can actually rip a locker room apart, as we witnessed happen to A&M's number one all-time recruiting class following their just shit show, calamitous, scandal-ridden, I think it was 2022 season. Yeah, 2022. So LSU, we're kind of in a damned if you do long-term, damned if you don't short-term position here with these defensive tackles, where of course they'd be celebrated right now as badasses on the recruiting trail for signing these two. But later on down the road, when one of them tears an ACL only 4 games into the year, or the other doesn't, outperform Bro, McKinley, Savion Jones, Parashand, anything can happen in life, and you just banked $3 million and pushed all the chips in on those two guys. And possibly risk pissing off a few guys who maybe affects their performance. Guys who picked Miami and Oklahoma over LSU. Guys who picked Miami and Oklahoma over LSU rather than play on the biggest stage in college football with almost guaranteed playing time for the best defensive line coach in America, a man who just had 2 more of his top apprentices from his time at Texas, selected inside the first 38 picks of the draft. 2024 NFL draft. This was just barely while they were making this decision. Byron Murphy, second in the first round, and Trevonte Sweat at number 38 overall. So while LSU saw 3 defensive tackles also selected in a season with one of our worst ever defenses, you can say LSU is too cheap. You can say LSU isn't ambitious enough to go get them and risk some hurt feelings or locker room drama in the name of beefing up a title contending squad's glaring weakness. And you can rip on Brian Kelly and say he doesn't have the big ego in the big pocketbook, the big deep pockets for the SEC. But we can also say, I think with even more confidence than all of what I just said, but we can also say Simeon Barrow going to Miami over LSU is shying away from the smoke for a far cushier ride. Like, we can say that. We can say Simeon Barrow, you ducked this one. However much you were paid. Miami's a great place to live, I'm sure, but this decision will look interesting on his NFL draft. We'll say that. It's very strange to me. Very strange. Cole Adams in the house. Scotty B says, our secondary didn't even know if we were in cover 2 or cover 3 in the spring game. Blake will have to work magic to get this team off the field. It's about we've got to have this defense find a way to do some things great on the field. Start from just doing one thing great on the field, whether that's creating turnovers. You are able to get off the field on third down, or on second down, you do a damn good job on second down. Okay, build from there. But here's the thing. We always had great second down, first down defense this last season, right? First, second down this last season, it was like, hey, yeah, this is looking good. And third down, you'd have them at 3rd and 13, and some mid quarterback would shred LSU's defense like, you know, Parmesan cheese at Olive Garden. Just he would shred that shit right through the teeth, and you'd see guys flailing all over the place. And it was because of this soft zone coverage already having them set up to fail, already being an easy canvas to pass against. So, I mean, we were screwed to begin with the way we're set up. When you're set up 15 yards off of the dude, you're not able to jam them at the line, all this stuff that's totally allowed. But you see teams rarely take advantage of it now because they lack the coverage skills to be up that close at the line without falling on their ass when they're dealing with someone with speed and moves coming right at them or being physical with them themselves. Jamar Chase is a great example. When you see a guy like this, people back off and they usually get Jamar Chase a few yards at least. They don't want to jam that guy at the line. But you just never saw LSU as a defensive backs competing on the field pre-snap, like or right at the snap, I should say. You never saw, or no, you can say pre-snap as well because they were never anticipating anything. They were never communicating. They were never getting, okay, you know what? Fuck Matt House. I'm moving up to the line of scrimmage. I'm moving up closer to the line of scrimmage. You didn't see that type of mutiny, which would have been beautiful and celebrated amongst the entire LSU fan base if there had been a mutiny. But, you know, we're not talking secondary today, even though we just did. Chris Milder, my man, White Trash Tiger, follow him on Twitter. He says, Quincy Wiggins. It's Quincy. It's with an E where the I is. How dare you, Chris? How dare you, sir? He says, Quincy Wiggins would be nice to have. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't a defensive tackle, more defensive end, kind of like a 3-4 defensive end. But you're still talking about a guy who's playing 3 tech, close enough, beefing him up, unbelievable athletic body, move him inside. You know, I think LSU defensively are going to have to get very creative here, and you're going to see some guys move around. Like we just said, you're going to see Savion Jones, most likely Parishon, moving inside. Joining Ahmad Bro, who just did. I keep saying that guy's name wrong. You know, still there is one pattern that is emerging throughout this whole thing that is kind of bothersome to me. As much as I'm, kind of saying, hey, Kelly is in a situation here with NIL that LSU does not want to go down that unsustainable path. Even if it takes us another year to win a title, he's not going to do it. And I admire that and I applaud that because we're literally showing that we can and we will pay the youth on our football team by what we're doing in the 2025 recruiting class. There's money set aside for all those guys. And then when you're talking about, you just had a very impressive top 5 2024 and 2023 classes coming in. But the whole rocking the boat by bringing in some guy you just paid $1.5 million to, this dude's like, hey, Bo, I make more than you. You can't yell at me. The dynamic of that, Brian Kelly just doesn't want any part of, and I actually like that in an era where it's so Wild West No one has any principles. We have seen that backfire. We have seen the non-principle, like mechanical, like just sign everybody, with throw money around. We've seen that, right? It doesn't work when it's at its most amoral and creepy, like the way Oklahoma just did it. Like it's Georgia, Alabama. They were doing it for a long time, but they were actually, you know, they would invest in some of these kids for years and let them develop without just cutting their throat loose, processing them or something like that. Like you'll see at other schools like Ohio State. Um, but it's just there's still one pattern that is emerging that is just bothersome to me. Although, I mean, one could argue it is simply the consequences of starting over on the defensive staff for the second time in 3 seasons now. But just like the defensive back portal sagas over the past 2 years under Brian Kelly, where LSU were forced to pursue transfer targets nonstop in order to gain any sort of reliable depth at corner or safety. 13 transfer arrivals. 13 transfer arrivals since Kelly's arrival at both corner and safety. And this is a pattern developing that cannot be ignored. Over the last 2 years, Kelly and company neglected the insane need at defensive tackle. We should have tried to retain Jaquelin Roy a lot harder after 2022. Maybe you throw the money around. I'm not going to blame that on them. I think Jay Roy was like, I'm going to the NFL. But maybe if you're able to keep Jaquelin Roy, you are able to kind of stop these dominoes that were about to fall. You know what I'm saying? Hard to do that. Hard to convince Jay Roy to stay when it's 10 different defensive line coaches in 10 years. But we should have never lost both Mekhi Wingo and Mason Smith before this last draft. And I think they would all agree. The staff would all agree with that. We had to pull out all the stops with these guys, not with Demonic Williams, and everyone's shaking these fireworks. It's just embarrassing look. Embarrassing look. I remember people going, LSU pulling out all the stops with this one. LSU pulling out all the stops with this one. LSU were doing this with Demonic Williams. LSU, I'm thinking, like, this looks so stupid. Like, I've got to be honest. This looks dumb. What is this crap? And sure enough, it looks like they thought the same. And, Demonic Williams, damn good player out of TCU. But really for me, the main target was Simeon Barrow. That was the guy I think LSU had to get here. The guy LSU needed to get here. Here it is in all of its terrible glory. I mean, you can see it on his face, too. Blake Baker's filming it. I mean, like, that kind of thing. It's not really on LSU. I think it's on the restaurant, because LSU, if they had seen that presentation, no way that they would have been down with it. Yeah, right? No way they would have been down with that. I mean, come on, Dak Uzell. And I love this LSU coaching staff. This is a strong LSU coaching staff. Bo Davis is as good as they come. Right? Blake Baker, exciting. There he is. Looks like Danny Ainge from that angle for some reason. There's Bo Davis's head, and you see most of his face. And then that guy right behind Baker. What is going on? We gotta pause on this guy. Like what? No. Here we go. Here we go. What is he doing back there? Dancing like a. Yeah, we've seen a lot of reaction against this now. A lot of fans weren't reacting against it when it happened. When it happened, okay. If it works, no. Didn't. And you know what? I think LSU, it's fine that we didn't get Demonic Williams. I mean, like, not fine, but I don't know. You know, bullet dodged maybe. Maybe bullet dodged. But Simeon Barrow to me is the player you had to get. Philip Bleedy would have been a great addition, I think, to the locker room. He seemed like a great kid. Really awesome dude to talk to. Really, had a sense of responsibility with his two children, both 2 and under, and just seemed like a really down to earth dude. I don't feel bad about him taking money or anything like that. Like, that's what he should be doing. Like, he should be going for the highest bidder. Like, straight up in this economy with this world that's going on right now. Like, he should be going for the highest bidder. No problem with Philip Levy doing that. But I mean, just like this whole problem for LSU goes back. Really, it's not today is the apex of it, maybe, but the apex of being depleted. But this goes back a long way. Even like letting Tyler Shelvin walk out the door in 2019 when he was just entering his junior season, redshirt junior season. LSU have had a habit of letting defensive linemen leave too early, and now with NIL, there's no excuse to let that happen. With Mekhi Wingo going in the 6th round, which probably shocked even him, shocked me for sure. I think probably Mekhi Wingo is most shocked and angered by it, of course, as any player would be. But my God, I wonder what he would think if, and I'm too scared to ask him this because I don't want to be an asshole, but I wonder if he would be like, hey, yeah, I maybe would have gone that route. Maybe, but at the same time, he's gone from a Tiger to a Detroit Lion. That's a team that contends. He's making more money than he's ever made in his life by far. Huge money. And so, like, he had a chance to make even bigger money, yeah, if he came back another year. But, like, he was injured in some bad ways. Maybe he was like, I'm just not going to take that opportunity, take that chance, come back for another season and have another injury. He played through injury for LSU twice. So I don't have any problem with Wingo going. It seemed like Wingo, it was more of his time to go. Mason Smith, we really should have broken the bank to get him to stay. And he should have picked in the top 50. And everyone thought it was wrong for him to go and celebrated Wingo for going. And then boo, 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 Mason Smith for going, but celebrated Wingo for going, even though we wanted both to stay. And then when Mason is drafted in the top 50, it's, yeah, Mason, yeah. And then Wingo falls to the 6th round. It's like, Wingo, what were you thinking? You should have stayed. Like, we can't have it both ways, guys. I mean, let's not even forget, we've been so depleted on the defensive tackle spot that Wingo, Jordan Jefferson, Jalen Lee, those are all transfer portal pickups in the first place. Those guys are all transfers too. It's crazy. It's crazy when you think about that. Those guys were transfers too. So LSU has had this problem for a long time. And it's coming to a head now Luckily, we have the best defensive line coach in the country, right? To fix this, to get us to the bridge this terrible gap into the future frontier. Dominic McKinley looks like someone who can come in and do that and be a powerful player for LSU from the first snap to the last. 3 high octane starting seasons, freshman, sophomore, junior, boom. But development is not always ABC. 10 different D-line coaches in 10 seasons plays such a big role in not being able to recruit the position and not being able to sustain getting these great names and keeping them, retaining them, because they're watching their coach leave. 10 different D-line coaches in 10 seasons, and that's an incredible number. And that doesn't even count the multiple short-term interim leaders, guys like Gerald Chapman from last spring, who was the interim D-line coach. But from 10,000 feet, we also need to remember how poor the roster was when Brian Kelly took over from Coach O, and how success and rejuvenation at every single position on roster and an immediate transition into the golden age at every position on roster was insane to expect when left with 37, 36 scholarships to work with. Maybe defensive tackle kind of got lost in the shuffle. They banked on Jaquelin Roy maybe staying another year, on Mason staying another year, Wingo's arrival and rise, and maybe he's going to stay another year for 2025. And then, Jacobian Guillory, his development hasn't taken off as well as we thought it would. Even though he's going to be a starter this next season and is good against the run, maybe his development never really took off like we expected. But due to Mason Smith leaving with multiple years of eligibility and transfer rival Mekhi Wingo leaving a year earlier than expected, while the Tigers are now striking out on 3 consecutive defensive tackle targets in the portal, Bo Davis will be left to his own devices. He'll need to be at his most creative here in 2024, his most developmentally sound, all the while recruiting at his, total apex on the trail. And he simply needs to develop guys like Preston Hickey into a fucking war machine. That guy needs to break necks next year. And he looked good in the spring game, Preston Hickey. Early enrollee freshman Demarion Johnson, he needs to be developed into that next great Louisiana-born Tiger DT. He needs to be somewhere in that mix of a guy who can at least make an impact. He's not going to be that next great LSU Louisiana-born Tiger DT in year 1. Get him somewhere where he is developmentally to that first step at least. Even former offensive lineman Kimo Macchianoli, turn him into a beast of gap clogging burden. Make him an absolute beast down there. And you saw him have some good snaps in the spring game, surprisingly. Spring game, but it wasn't just the spring game that we saw him have some good snaps in or play with the ones. It was throughout spring, interestingly enough. But if Coach Bo can build some of those second string guys with some little hints of promise into the real deal within the trenches, then the freshmen, Bro, McKinley, Demarion Johnson, they all come along at a solid rate. Then LSU maybe grab at least 1, hopefully 2 targets in the portal before all is said and done. And our sources are telling us Aiden Hutchinson out of ULM is the main target right now at this point. And they, like LSU, are like must-sign mode. With Aiden Hutchinson out of ULM. Say that name again. Aiden Hutchinson out of ULM looks to be the target. And not only the target, but like the must sign. Like, we have to get this guy. One thing though, LSU have let the entire portal world know we're desperate for defensive linemen, like defensive tackles specifically. How could this, affect our pursuit of targets, of other targets? I'm sure it affected us trying to get Williams and Barrow after Bleedy because everybody knew, oh, this is how much it was and how much he said no at, and how much he was paid at Auburn. Blah, blah. They knew how the market would be, and the kids and their families took advantage of it. And I can't blame them one bit. Not in this economy, not at all. Can't blame the families or the kids for cashing in and taking advantage of the Wild West rules. There's no cap. Get paid what you think you're worth. That might not be what, we think you're worth. Anyone thinks you're worth. Oklahoma thought they were worth enough to pay for it. Miami thought Simeon Barrett was worth it enough to pay for him. Philip Bleedy, paid for by Auburn. LSU need help at defensive tackle. There's no other way around it. Brian Kelly was not ready to sell LSU's soul and really screw up this roster to make it happen. And I kind of applaud Brian Kelly's courage for that, for basically just taking punches right now. There's people out there, there's fools out there who are literally saying, fire Brian Kelly. Like, are you kidding me? Fire Brian Kelly? LSU's quarterback position. Have you seen the players LSU are able to not only recruit right now, who we're putting in the draft? Jaden Daniels winning a Heisman, number 2 overall. You're talking about the number 1 quarterback soon coming. You're talking about a guy who was the number 1 quarterback of the 2025 class before he reclassified as a 2024. So this is a kid who's playing already a year ahead, Colin Hurley. There's some excitement with LSU when you're talking about the quarterback position. It's nuts what we've been doing at the quarterback position. Offensive line, unbelievable what Brad Davis has done. Unreal what he's done. And Bo Davis needs that time to establish that. Corey Raymond will need some time to reestablish that, I think. I think it's there for Corey Raymond more than it's been established for Bo. Bo's got to get his roots in Louisiana reshifted. And I think his high school recruiting is going to still be at its optimum. We got to pick up that transfer portal recruiting. But the number one thing that makes the difference between transfer portal recruiting and recruiting high school kids right out of high school, it's the obvious thing. It's the money. It's the money. And that's everything. That is totally the difference. Chris Melder says Mason had his best year his freshman season. Obviously that's duh. I mean, he had a 3-sack game that year. He had a sack against Florida, played really well, and then he got hurt for some really crucial stretches of games and missed pretty much every big game. He missed most of Ole Miss, missed A&M, missed Alabama. I believe he came back for the Kansas State game. And then he, everything looks great, gets hurt against Florida State. Looked like he was going to control the line of scrimmage against Florida State, and then he gets hurt 5 plays in. Unreal. And I think it was just about him playing a full season, healthy, getting into football shape, and then, hey, guys, I'm healthy again. Draft me. Like that. Obviously, it was more a mental thing than anything what happened from the injury. Because he got injured celebrating and jumping up. That would make you hesitant. That would make you feel weird on the field, feel a little physically awkward at times that maybe you've never seen from Mason Smith. And so I think that's what we saw last year. And it was to the detriment of our team because I think smartly Brian Kelly was like, we're gonna help Mason by playing him a lot of snaps, get back into football shape. That's smart, right? Right. But also, he's not performing. He's just being run on. He's just engaging in these one-on-one battles, fighting with guys. You have to put in someone who's going to get some penetration, who's going to help Nakai Wingo, who his groin, he had an injury in his groin, and it's just hurting more and more and more and more and more and more until he couldn't take it anymore. And it's because he was carrying that load himself with Mason engaged in these little fights. And so, yeah, it's obvious that Mason's freshman season was the best, but that's quite easy to say that. I hope he can take that next level with Brad Nielsen. I think he will. Give me kids that want to be great and coaches that can develop. Carnahan one says, I think LSU is going to struggle mightily in the rub game. Ooh, LSU in the run game, because Perkins isn't exactly good in the run game. I'm scared. LOL. Perkins hasn't been put in the right positions to excel in the run game. There's been times Perkins has been our only guy making stops in the run game. So, I mean, it's just about making sure he doesn't get stuck in the wash. It's about making sure he doesn't get surrounded by giant 300-pound bodies and he's unable to shed the blockers. It's about freeing him up so that he's got a little bit of space and time to anticipate, read and react, use that pace to go find the football and attack it. And maybe that might be putting him at the star position at the end of the day. I think that might be something that Blake Baker should look at as well. Major Burns in there and just rely on that totally? I don't think so. I think you've also got to say Harold Perkins. We've got to have him able to play there too if we need to get him out of this stupid middle linebacker idea that we've got going on. Because the middle linebacker thing, if they do it right, they scheme it right, it could be brilliant. But we would need defensive tackles. We don't have that. Putting Harold at middle linebacker, having him do middle linebacker duties purely is a dumb idea anyway. But when you've got him there playing, this kind of static position like we saw against Florida State last year, behind anonymous defensive tackles, you don't even have Nakai Wingo back another year. You don't have Mason Smith. That's a recipe for disaster. Your best bet is to have Harold in a kind of free role, blitzing and rushing as he sees fit, and the rest of the guys carry the weight and make sure they're there and clean up the mess. When he blitzes, there's got to be a guy who's there to make sure that the gap Harold vacates isn't attacked by a route or by a running back who kind of comes out from the backfield and then he's got 20, 30 yards. LSU have some good players against the run game. Whit Weeks, Greg Penn III is fantastic against the run game. It's in the passing game where Penn III can really be picked on. Cole Adams says, move Bro Jones inside if necessary. Yep, they've already moved Bro inside. He has officially been moved inside. And Savion Jones is likely heading that way as well. Carnahan one says, if LSU doesn't make the playoffs this year, do we start to have a conversation about Brian Kelly? How many teams is it that are allowed to make the playoffs this year? 16? 17? What is it? 12, 14, blah, blah, blah. What? How much? I forgot. Like, they expanded it. So I'm kind of like, where's it at right here? Let me see. How many? Twelve team. Okay. 12-team playoff bracket where some of the top ranked seeds have buys. Okay. LSU technically could be playing a home playoff game with this setup. If we're one of the lower ranked teams having to play a first round game, we could end up hosting a first round game at Tiger Stadium right after playing Oklahoma at Tiger Stadium for a first. Like it's crazy what's going on this year. But 12-team playoff. I don't think you have a discussion about Brian Kelly. I think you have a discussion about Brian Kelly after year 4. I really do. And I know someone's like, "Well, that's a really big waste of time." And it's like he's taken us to an SEC championship already. He's done some incredible things for our program that has kind of taken us back to where we should be. We should be getting quarterbacks this highly rated. We should be in the mix for all these big names. We should always be competitive on the recruiting trail with everyone. Talking about the transfer portal too. LSU should always be right there in the mix. LSU's doing that with Brian Kelly. I know we want more, and we want more, and we want to get to that next level. But sometimes these type of dynasty type things takes some time. And I think Brian Kelly is putting together something that could be that next college football dynasty. And I think he's trying to make sure he gets it right. He's trying to make sure he doesn't want to start a program that is going to just be pay to play unless it really goes totally over to that direction. Right now, there's still a lot of faith that this thing's going to get reined in pretty soon here. And some of the Wild West insanity of the NIL stuff won't exist anymore. Chris Milder says, I also think Brian Kelly and staff are a little gun shy after last year's portal list. That could be. Casey says, Kelly's fault. He waited till January to fire the entire defensive staff with signing day and the portal being open in December. Yep, we're lucky we got Relaford and we got McKinley. I mean, we had to get flips. So, I mean, that's another thing. Some of the stuff LSU have done on the recruiting trail is insane, considering the circumstances. We got flips, 2 guys from A&M. Although we profited off of that situation where the defensive line coach at A&M left. And so that was a situation LSU were lucky to take advantage of. They didn't even recruit those guys until like the 11th, basically the 12th hour, literally like 11:55 a.m. PM on the dot, where you're right next to midnight. And yeah, it was crazy. We should have fired House after Florida. I mean, maybe not after Florida State. I mean, then maybe you let him kind of prove himself, but definitely after that second loss. Ole Miss, wasn't it? Ole Miss was the second loss. He has to go after Ole Miss. No way he had to. In any way, he should have continued. I don't understand that. So Casey, totally good point. Adam says, right on, Bo Davis will do the defensive line. What Brad Davis has done with the offensive line within a couple of years. Our coaches will do the best with what they got. I mean, we'll see. I'm not saying it's 100% guaranteed, but it would be inconceivable for him not to. It would be hard to see Bo Davis come here and not be a success at LSU, right? It would have to be from a lack of funding, a lack of all sorts of things, and just a total screw job. Cole Adams says Blake Baker has to turn Greg Penn into a sure tackle run stopper. I mean, leading the team in tackles, being second in tackles the last few years, great. but it's always been from busts and things like that and just chasing people down. It's only been on a few games here and there where we've seen Greg Penn III really control, dominate, and own opponents. And he's trending in the right direction. But that miss he had on Josh Williams in the spring game, damn, that did not look good. Damn, that did not look good. Just one play, though, just one play. Jordan Gilbert, who's also looked awesome throughout spring, made 2 terrible whiffs in that game. Terrible whiffs that cost touchdowns. And I got to say that he looked fantastic throughout spring. So, it's going to happen to you in football. We just cannot let that happen so much. And we can't let it happen where the fans shit themselves when it happens on the first defensive drive. And so the players shit themselves. We've got to just remain chill and see if it is really as bad as it is. And then it's like, okay, we have to scrap this whole thing. It's just we cannot lose the first game against USC. We cannot let this catch us by surprise that our defense is still shitty, and it might even be shittier. There's no way. There is no conceivable way that our defense can be shittier than last year. No way. No way. No way. No way. No way. Cole Adams says, LSU fans aren't known for patience. I'm not, but I think this has to be that one mulligan. We'll see. We'll see. I think it's premature to be asking for Brian Kelly's head or questions about Brian Kelly. I think there's some troubling patterns with some whiffs and also just, maybe some poor personnel decisions, not understanding when you're lacking depth at certain areas. But they couldn't put out every, fucking fire on the roster at once, Taking care of the offensive line fire, taking care of the quarterback fire, taking care of the receiver fire. They did some damn good things for this team. And now it's time that the defense gets its shit together and gets aligned. And that's what Kelly has made a big part of this offseason is about, is him spending time with that defense and getting it together. We will see what that leads to. But really, questions for me start with Kelly. After this season, things don't go well. LSU lose 5-6 games, something look crazy like that, unforeseeable. There's really got to be questions. And then really ratchet up that pressure going into year 4. And it's a must-win season then. And, for Kelly, I hope that doesn't happen. Because what he's building, you don't want someone else taking all the credit for what you've built and coming on and just putting the cherry on top after you've done all the hard work of cleaning up Coach O's mess. So Kelly really, he doesn't have to win a championship in year 3, but I think he needs to come close to get the pressure off of his back, at least, to get any signs of any trouble in paradise type of bullshit headlines. You know what I'm saying? But LSU is a team to be there. LSU with the worst program defense we've ever had, arguably. Last year, we still won 10 games and still have a chance if we had beaten Alabama, if some things had fallen our way to going to another SEC title game. So I understand. I understand the trepidation. I understand the worry, but LSU are not in as bad of a spot as people think. The sky is not as falling as you want to pretend. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. No, it's not all good. Oh my God, no. I mean, yes, LSU should have gotten one of these guys. And LSU might be screwed at DT for a season. But everything else, it seems, with this program, except for, you've got to take care of your glaring weaknesses ahead of time. And Kelly's learned some harsh lessons, there's been some fantastic signs of not only progress that are proven from Brian Kelly, but signs that this is a team, a program that is going to become a winner consistently and a championship contender either this year or next season. And defensive tackle is so key in all of it. And so this year, I understand. I mean, this day where we strike out on a couple guys, strike out, last 2 days. I understand it hurts. I understand it's frustrating, but it isn't. This isn't everything, It's kind of look at the big picture here, and look at why LSU couldn't throw that type of money around. And everybody, this is such a great thing. We've had so many people here. We got Nurse Court in the house. I've seen her comments where we got Peggy, we got Casey, we got Cole Adams, we got Kyle, we got Carnahan, we got Jamer, Peggy, of course, Scotty B, Cordell. Here we go. We've got Nurse Court. No meltdown over here. She's always chill. She's always chill. Nurse Court. Everybody say a prayer for a friend of Nurse Court's, and definitely lend your support. Just say a prayer for his recovery. I won't reveal his name or anything like that, but just say a prayer for Nurse Court's friend. I'm sure God will know who you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Everybody, have a good rest of your night, and we'll be talking to you very, very, very soon. Everybody, this was presented by ReleafMed and from LSUODYSSEY.COM. Thank you for checking it out, and thank you for following our coverage all throughout this defensive tackle portal search pursuit.